Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of In Conversations with. My today's guest is one of the most celebrated film editors in India with a career spanning over 4 decades. He has worked on some of the biggest and most critically acclaimed Indian films of all time. Mr. Sreekar Prasad is known for his innovative and groundbreaking editing techniques, which have helped to shape the landscape of Indian cinema. Welcome, sir. We are honored to have you with us today. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for joining, and how are you doing today?
Yeah, fine here. Hope all you guys are doing good too.
That is great to hear, and again, like we all are very much honored to have you. So when we actually, it's kind of a funny incident. Like when we announced this, so everybody was like, this we are looking forward to this episode because people were, and many people have a lot of questions about editing. So I've kind of took those questions also. So I'm going to jump right into the technicalities of the editings. Now,
Yeah,
personally, I feel that in this age, editing is quite a misunderstood term. Now, many people think of it just as putting video clips together, especially in the social media age, kind of this thing. So, my first question is, how do you define editing to a person who is just getting into filmmaking?
see, editing is a process. I think where you have to. It helps the director in telling a story. So, what is that which interests you in the story? That is what you have to look at. So if you're reading a book, the characterization, the way it plays out, the screenplay, or the in the book it's the wordplay, all these things, and the dialogues which make impact. So all these things are a part of the script. And that is what we work on initially for the initial part of before the shoot. For the maybe about few months, they do a pre-production where they do a draft one, draft two, draft three. The director is, and we are also privy to the script, and we work on it. So now what happens is, because of so many other factors which are which come into play, like actors. When writing, it could you could write it very perfectly as a very clear mm, timeline or a clear graph of a character. But when an actor comes in, he has to imbibe it in himself and get that thing out. So what happens is, the first thing which we look at is performances. What generally everybody could think, and in this age and where you can work on what you would say mobiles and softwares and things like that, it is very easy to join a few clips and make it into a sequence, and it can be beautiful. I mean, you will have a lot of visuals which you're shooting on your holidays and stuff like that. You try to see here, when we are doing something, we are trying to create a meaning out of it. So when A gets joined to B, to C, to D, which are the shots.
Yes.
Basically, I think it's what I'm trying to tell you is probably most of you will know, but I'll just tell you any which ways. Is that a script is divided into X number of sequences, 80 sequences, 60 sequences, 100 sequences, whatever, depending on the scale of the story. But then each sequence by itself is divided into a number of shots. These are the shots which are shot because it is impossible to get all the emotions in one single shot. Probably when cinema started, it was one single take which was taken, because then they had no option to join things. Slowly when they started realizing that, and the film was of a short duration, so what they invented was about maybe a minute or two of naked celluloid, which they would shoot as one thing, and that was being projected, and it had no sound also at that time. So then they realized that if I join A and B together, I can make it a longer film. And then slowly the part of the editing came in. First, it was basically they would make a character go out right of the frame and enter him left of the frame, and then the rest of the sequence would continue, or something like that.
Yeah.
Then slowly we started, or people at that time started to experience that if you juxtapose two shots, some meanings could be created. So if there's a standoff, if two people were standing against each other, a close-up of A and a close-up of B, standing and looking at each other for 3 seconds or 4 seconds, suddenly could create a tension where they're hostile to each other before they do something. Or there could be love in between them. Like these lot of permutations and combinations came in during the initial part of the editing. So keeping in tradition like that, as films went on, they became larger, lengthier, and more content. And so now the editor basically what he's supposed to look at while editing a particular film or any film for that matter is the performances. You know, the performances which holds your attention on screen. So you would have already read the script and you'll know that this character is supposed to behave like a particular way. But when the performances are being performed, the actor, he is a human. He would have come from another film, or he takes little time to get into this character, things like that. So he may do a number of times the same thing to get. And so now it's the job of the editor to get that right take out of this.
Yes.
So there may be multiple takes. About 8 times you will have said the same thing, but the fifth and eighth may be the closest to the character he's playing. So we take that out. And like that, we have to select all the good moments which give you a feeling of experience on the screen and put it together as a scene. This is our first stage of editing. So here is the performances, keeping the storyline in mind. What is the focus of the scene? So if the scene focus is that X person is more important because he is getting affected by this whole sequence, then we probably try to divert the attention to him, giving him more focus and more footage, and so that at the end of the scene you feel vindicated that this guy has really been affected. So this is our initial process of the editing where we cut each scene by itself. So there are 80 scenes, we cut each. This is the first process. The second process is when we join scene 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to make it as a long film.
Yeah.
See, at this stage, invariably in any film or any short film or anything, you tend to rediscover a lot of things, which is that some information which you're actually giving comes through in the middle of the sequence itself, and the rest of the part is becoming redundant. This is where the editor has to take a call to where to end the sequence. The sequence would have been shot in entirety if you imagine a sequence of A person coming and talking to B person and then going out of the frame and going back home. But in keeping the flow of the story, if we feel that A person has come and spoken to B and the whatever you need to convey has been conveyed, then it doesn't really make sense to linger the scene, because it just makes the audience lose interest in the scene. So these sort of combinations and permutation combinations come in during the second stage of editing when we see it as a film. And also lots of times there may be information which you would have in the script stage you would want to have underlined in many places so that audience really get it and don't miss this particular point that this guy was a thief or this guy was a cop or something. You would have repeated it 2-3 times. But when you see in the film, probably the first time it would have made such an impact, the second time and third time that information may be redundant. So there starts happening a flow of events which we call almost the second stage of screenplay. Screenplay invariably changes during the course of the final edit of the film, because there may be a sequence C which may not be even required, or between B and D there may be a better flow, so C has to go to a different place. So these sort of things. So basically the editor is required to tell the story in the best possible way, in the shortest time possible. Shortest time, why I say is, as the period of time over a period of time, the interest of the audience, their levels of interest also reduce because they're used to so much media
Yeah.
and footage on different channels, so they get the point quickly. So you
Yes.
need to up your game and quickly come to a situation where you convey what you have to convey. You convey it with emotion, because whatever you're conveying, if it's a pain, if it's a sorrow, laughter, anything, is something which the audience is going to experience when the character is also experiencing. So when the character does experience it for 5 seconds, the audience is also experiencing it for 5 seconds. So this balance of how much to keep of each thing and not cross the limit of getting into redundancy.
Yes.
This is what we really need to keep a check on when an editor gets into a film.
Okay, like that was a very long, elaborative
Yeah.
insight into the process, and we really don't think so much when we are, because like
Yeah.
nowadays the thing is that nowadays like the common perception is that it's just editing is seen as just as a software. So like I also just want to ask you this, that does it really depend on the software in which a person is editing, or is it more of an emotional kind of thing which kind of flows the entire story?
No, I think software is totally a tool. I think,
Yeah.
because I think if you want to be a filmmaker, and if you have to look at the emotional part of it, of engaging the audience in the sequence of visuals that you're showing. See, what what we would want any new filmmaker, budding filmmaker who's coming, to know very clearly that this is a very visual audio experience. It's not only information being fed into you through dialogues. There is a thing called, it's on a large screen if you're seeing it, or you're watching on your television, whatever. There is a visual which is being shown, which itself by itself conveys. So cinema in the right spirit is something you show visually, and you also support it with audio, and you convey a story, so that it's a visual audio experience rather than being
Yeah.
unfortunately in Indian cinema, if you see, most of our films are very verbose. So I mean, that's not the ideal situation to be, but we've got used to it.
Yeah.
So we try to convey everything very fast by telling dialogues. I mean, it's
Yes.
with one visual you can probably convey who this particular character is, but
Yes.
you would not take the trouble. But what you would do is you would make somebody tell, oh, he's the DSP of such and such a place,
Yeah.
so he's come here. It's the easy way out. So that sort of easiness is not what is required to make really a cinematic experience.
Yes. So, coming
And
on that,
soft, and
yeah.
sorry, I didn't
No,
forget.
no, no. Yeah, definitely, sir. Yeah.
The software part of it is a tool to get the required effect, because the software, as it keeps improving, first we were handling on film, we were actually cutting film for the features, and we were
Yeah.
joining it and seeing it on different machines, and which had made a lot of noise, and it was mechanical and things like that. Then it shifted to the computers, and then what happened, it made life easy for the editor to explore a lot of things, but it will cannot define the editing of a film, or it cannot change how a film should be edited, because a film can only be edited in a way that it gives you an emotional experience of that particular story you're telling.
Yes. Correct. Correct. Yeah. So, coming to that, you talked about the exposition part, like especially in Indian films, which are very dialogue heavy oriented. So, like, and also like while I was researching about like for this interview and everything, I came across a lot of articles and videos where you said that you get involved directly from the scripting stage. So can you tell us a little bit more about your process as to how you personally, like like you told the general way in which an editor should ideally kind of edit one film, but especially let's say in the context of an Indian film, normally what we have been hearing till now is that the editor comes in, like most of the cases editors are hired later, like until unless it's some sort of a very big project, like that's the general kind of thing. So can you tell us a little bit that why do you think, or why do you personally like to get involved during the scripting stage, and how does it complement with the writing part of the film? Because editing is also essentially rewriting the film in some format.
Correct. See, what happens is with filmmakers who you have a good rapport and a wavelength, and you want to do this similar sort of outlook on cinema and things like that, it makes sense to actually get into it at the stage of the script, because see, a script is something which maybe a director and a writer, maybe two people are actually writing it over a period of time. Sometimes here south there are more directors writing, and north there is a whole system of writers being there who will actually write the script if you give them the idea. So what happens is that it again boils down to the flow of events and logic of events. Sometimes you do tend to, while writing, skip these things. You may be going from one emotion to another emotion because it's got multi stories or it's got subplots and things like that, where suddenly you will feel that the high before it has come, it has gone into another track. So these sort of things, I think an editor who has a little experience of working on more, editors got chance of working on more projects than probably a director, because a director, for him to finish a film, probably takes more time, and also the success and failure of a film really affects the director to get his next film and things like that. So an editor who has been working on more work and more projects would be in a good objective position to talk about a flow of a story. What is stopping the flow? You at lots of times you feel that it's really building up into a very good moment in the middle of the film, and then suddenly it loses steam because it takes off into a tangent and it's not able to match the high of the first half, because unfortunately we have that a little bit of a disadvantage in our filmmaking, where we have two halves. So invariably what happens is, in the first half, you want the audience to go out of the theater with a big high. So you create a big high in the interval point, and then the challenge is to make this as a starting point to push it to a much higher level at the second half. So all these things play a part during the script, and then the placement of songs. They would want songs because it promotes their film, so they want an album for it because it makes business sense, and also it's a very good tool for marketing. So where the song comes, how organically can we get in the song today? Because now people aren't very kind when you suddenly jump into a song and there's two people dancing. I mean, people that get totally, I would say, away from the film, no, most of the time, because so you need to blend it in. So all these permutations, combinations happen during the uh, working of the script, and it keeps improving. And mostly looking at how the graph of the character moves, and is he justified when, and even if you take a small character, does he play enough part to have be in the film, so that does he have a round off for him, does he have a payoff? Because you may start something off and then you just forget about it because you have no time later, then there's no payoff, then what is the point in having these sort of things come into play with experience and repeated reading. This is one thing of trying to make the script better. The other thing which an editor would really understand is what is the subject about, because it's not every subject is something which is experienced by the editor. You know, if you're suddenly talking about some red light area,
Yeah.
or you're talking about something, some riot somewhere happening, which I've not even experienced,
Yeah.
while reading this and trying to get and probably trying to do a research and finding out the enormity of the subject that is being handled, this gives a great opportunity for the editor to be fully involved in this whole concept of vision of the director which he's trying to tell. So I think that way also it really helps for the editor to be part of the script right from the start.
Okay. So, so like, do you kind of actually like, are you against or are you for this idea that, like directors should be also good editors? Because no, this statement is a very like on the internet as well as in with the people I've interacted with, like many people are for this idea and many people say that, no, directors should not edit. So like, there is one point of objectivity which you are like since the director, let's say, is involved for 3 years, and then the editor, let's say, is involved for only a year and a half, then there is this kind of objectivity. But again, that can also matter, that can also be kind of taken in another note. If a film takes a very long time to make, like let's say RRR was, it took 5 years from its production date when it was actually announced, like 2018 to 2022, kind of that time. So what do you think about this? Like, should directors be good editors or the vice versa?
So I think what is good, which happened many years back also. I'm talking about Raj Kapoor and
Yes.
previous 20, 30, 40 years back. They had a training in editing. So it's not that they want to dictate the editing, but to know that what they are shooting can be actually put together the, in the grammar or the right reactions. You know, whether it's been, see, if you would probably shoot a master shot, and then you would want in the master shot there are three places where it's very imperative that you go closer because it's very something profound is being said and you want people to get affected by it. But unfortunately, if you don't know how the long shot choreographs, and then you wouldn't be able to take the closes because you don't know whether it will be cut. That long shot will be moving and suddenly you'll have static close-up. So all these things play a part in helping a director if he knows that okay, this can be cut. But I don't think he needs to edit his film himself. I mean, that's not a necessity. I think if he can, if he is capable of it, he can edit and he can take his own decisions. That's okay. But what would could probably help is having another mind on this job, because I'm not going for the shoot. I'm not sitting what is happening there. I'm looking at it very clinically and objectively at a footage. For me, it doesn't matter if it is a big star, if it is a superstar who's acting,
Yes.
so he can do. I'm looking at a character. If the character is called Ram is acting in a particular way. So I'm trying to believe that this is Ram and he's supposed to do these things. You know. So when this sort of objectivity can be brought by another technician into it, because definitely a director, especially if they are in the initial stages of direction, it could be very difficult for them to be objective because they would always go back. See, there are so many compulsions. It's like you have taken a lot of time to shoot a shot, and that too with a star and things like that. So it's going to be very difficult to say throw. If I'm going to say throw the shot, they will
Yeah.
hesitate to throw the shot because you don't know how, what will the star think, what will the producer think, what will the cost involved, things like that. You know,
Yeah.
because I had this experience in one film I joined called Kamini,
Yeah.
in which
Which I've
we
heard
had
that.
a huge sequence at the beginning, and I was called a little later into the film because they were not able to get the right flow of the story because it's a two-story parallel story of two people, and it was getting confusing because you don't know who's who, you know. So we had to make it clear, and then there was a brilliant sequence on the top with action sequence about 5 minutes, some 2 crores spent and all that. But the moment I saw Vishal is a good friend, so I told him, Vishal, this looks as if this is probably not necessary. We start from somewhere where you start understanding the story. This is confusing the hell out of me. He was finding difficult to digest that, but he agreed for everything else except that. He said, "Let's keep trying with this," and it went on for some time. Then we had a lot of focus screenings in different states in India because that's how they do it. The corporates, they show it to select audience and get feedback, and everywhere this top was always giving a. I mean, they're loving the scene, but it's confusing the hell out of them. Then why this is happening? Then this is happening like that. So I just pushed them and him and Ronnie Screwwala at the time to just see one projection without that scene and see if there's any difference. And then we saw in Bangalore, and then there this confusion itself was not. They were directly able to get into the story. They knew they were two brothers, and they were getting into the story. And so, like this, some things are very difficult to part with because it's written with lot of effort and shooting and things like that. So, when there's some objectivity, and if they are able to uh, reason it out, I think it really makes to sense. It really makes sense to have another person as an editor who can bring some value to the project.
Yes, yes. Adding on to that, you said that while giving that example of if somebody doesn't like, if a director doesn't know where to cut. Now, over here, I have kind of another question. That is, there are many directors having their particular cinematographic style. So, like, let's say, even if that, like, normally film grammar wise, that could, like a particular shot would have been a close-up shot, but let's say that particular director is famous for doing like these emotional scenes in a wide shot, kind of those things, and you have worked with like you have worked with so many films. So how do you, let's say, a director who is having such a distinctive style of filmmaking, and if you're editing that director's project, how do you kind of manage to keep that director's voice and at the same time bring in objectivity in there?
See, that's what, if it's very clearly uh, determined that this is the style that he wants, we will probably not be able to go beyond that because there won't be footage
Yeah.
beyond that also. But this thing is what this whole filmmaking is a very constructive, argumentative art. So because it's not about, see, something I like is very subjective. No, art itself is subjective.
Yes.
One person, like we are, like suppose about 10-20 people of you are here. Everybody won't like one particular film. There may be one rare film will you like, but everybody will have an opinion on a particular film in a different way, maybe, or things like that. So we'll have to try to do with what is best we have. Of course, the editor, that constraint will be there, but still we try to get it out in such a way that maximum possible we try to push it and get so that the effect on the screen is good enough.
Okay. And like now, kind of moving to a little bit different part of this editing, which is that nowadays visual effects are used a lot, and I'm not talking about films with like visual effects characters. So I'm talking about those invisible effects. So let's say like it's shot in a green screen, or like the background is changed, the shirt color is changed. So like many of people from IITM, from our film society, also have this question, even including me, that where, like, since now most of the editing is also involving visual effects, what is exactly the pipeline like where does the visual effects come in, where does editing come in, and where does it again get mixed, and so what is the entire thing there?
See, the ideal way, there are various ways of visual effects. Some are for comfort level, which is like if you're going shooting in a place, suddenly you land up with 10 cars at the back, now, at half a kilometer distance, which is not supposed to be there because that place is supposed to be uninhabited, but it's there. So this is not a planned VFX shot or anything like that. Now what you realize is there's no other way of shooting this but shooting it with that. Or you're shooting in a place in a period film, and there are all these electrical poles going around, and there's no way of removing them because it's not physically possible. See, these are things which are not planned VFX, which come with as a package into the film, because it has to be done. And now, because before technology wasn't there, they used to go to remote place and make sure that the frame was a place where there's no electrical pole, and they would try to cover that up and shoot like that and things like that. But now, when there's a facility, you have a place which looks period, but it has few electrical poles or one grid or something like that, which you is easy to erase it. So these are not like planned VFX, but they come as part of it. So they can be easily erased at a cost. So now cameramen, and as it goes on, it's become very easy for them to not get curbed by what is happening around. Suddenly the sky is not very good, you go ahead and shoot because you finish the shoot, and then sky can be fixed in the CG and things like that. So like that, that's I would call it convenience CG, which is happening, which is also due to sometimes due to planning and stuff like that, where they take it easy because it is one character suddenly runs at the back. In previous days, they used to make sure that they used to take another take till that guy nobody comes in the field of operation and things like that. But here, when your affordability is there, you say, okay, you take it. And this is not what I would call the ideal planning of CG, but it happens. This is one CG which, VFX, which happens all the way. It's more for convenience. But the actual VFX, which really happens for a film, where it really helps, because like recently we did a film called Ponniyin Selvan,
Yes.
in which there was a lot of places which the director he's inclined to shoot in real locations by heart always. So he tried to push till he gets real locations. It's not practical at all because it's at the peak of COVID and things like that, and getting real locations all over the northern India and all that is going to be very difficult. So a lot of part had to be shot in Hyderabad in sets. So here means it has to be planned. The plan is that first a pre-visualization has to be done of the frame as a painting, saying that this palace is going to be like this. So a part of it which are covering the characters and stuff like that, or to a height of 10 feet, they can afford to actually make it the way it is art directed. So and above that, whatever is there, a palace would obviously go up till 50 feet or 60 feet or 100 feet, whatever. The rest of it has to be created by CG. So this is like amalgamation of two things. One is set and one. So this has to be planned. If it is not planned, it's going to be very difficult because you will not get the perspectives, angles, everything. So you have to shoot, and also a lot of stuff is shot on green mat.
Yes.
The green mat, why? Because you don't have that particular. See, suppose a person in this film, it's in lots of places they have these windows, open windows, where they're standing and talking, but you don't have the landscape. Outside the palace, it's going to go till a long distance. So you have to shoot that. So they shoot on green mat. They make the note of all the lenses and shoot the whatever has to come at the back. If it is totally CG created, then they give these lensing details to them and they create it like that. Otherwise, if something has to be shot somewhere else and placed, it has to be shot in the same lens so it will match the same perspective. Otherwise, it's going to look odd. So this sort of planning is required if you want to do CG. And this, I'm talking totally about CG, which is invisible. It's just to CG is not come in only to show off that there is CG. You know, it's come in to make a frame better, make your life easy, the cost less. You know, now even they have LED screens on which
Yes.
they play the whole background and keep the actors in between and shoot. India doesn't have very big ones, so they're still finding it difficult.
So like it's the virtual production kind of thing with Unreal
Virtual
Engine.
productions called Unreal Engine.
Yeah, Unreal Engine. Yes.
So they're exploring all these things, and then again there is CG, which is created for a situation where you can't really shoot. Animals you cannot shoot in India if they are wild animals, especially like tigers or anything like that. It's out. So you have to create them. So now there should be a great planning in how to create them, because it's going to be totally created, the animal. If it's going to be like RRR,
Yes.
animals jumping out of the thing, everything. So you have to visualize. You will have to first draw. That much work is there. There's 3-4 stages of work. One is to draw the frame and see that this is the frame is going to be. Then create a video previs on it, and then try to edit it into your edit.
Yeah.
And then actual shoot will happen, and then amalgamate this previs and this, and then give it to the CG, because even CG is a very expensive affair. So you have to, the editor has to streamline it in such a way that it doesn't go way beyond. And 5%, 10% is okay, but not like you cannot have so many extra minutes, because it's going to cost huge amount of money. So all these things have to be thought, visualized, planned, and given exactly to the CG, and then they start giving their first stage, which will be a sort of a frame of, wireframe. The animal will be in wireframe. It will be jumping and this and that, but it will be like one of those unfinished, without textures and stuff like that. So you edit first with that and just make sure it is, and then you give it to him. Then so that the contacts, the jumps, where it has to, if there is a contact with another character or an animal, all these are checked and then given back, and then they do the texturing and get it to a level. So this is the whole process in which the CG can happen.
Okay, and before I move to the audience round, in the interest of time, I just have one last question, and and that is in this again in this virtual age where people are constantly exposed to this 30-second kind of format. How do you ensure that while watching in a theater, like as you said, like there are many processes which are not especially followed in India due to many various commercial reasons, or because like let's say you can do the exposition of a character just by one single shot. So how do you kind of balance this in order to make the film more accessible to large masses of the country, because there's the commerce side of things also, and especially when there is so much less attention span?
Yeah, see, what we have to understand, I think, if it is for filmmaking, is we have to have a judgment on how it would look on such a big screen also. Because half the time, most of the people will get access to working on television screens. Which are like between 20 to 27 or 30 or whatever inches. But this is like some several hundred times bigger. So the information that you're actually editing in, for you to register on a big screen, needs to breathe. It has to have a certain length, So a long shot to actually assimilate and understand probably requires an X length, and not like the same length which is there on your Avid or
Yeah. Like DaVinci Resolve.
whatever equipment you're working on. So all these things is there, and also keep in mind that how fast or how quickly you can get audience to understand what you're trying to tell. So if it's going to take only 20 seconds to make them understand that the next thing is happening, it takes 20 seconds and you can still. But it can't be, you cannot compare it with the other media for a screen experience, always. You need to actually let things breathe because you're watching it on such a big screen. A wide shot, you would probably not see even the character if you keep it for a second. But you would see the character, same character, if you see it on a small screen. So that problem is there. So you somewhere have to balance it. Of course, you have to balance it with the knowledge that with the period of time, audiences' patience to see lengthy thing is diminishing. They would like to have quicker narrative because they're able to get it. They've seen so much of film, they're able to get it. So you need to keep up the pace of that, but you have to mainly understand that it you have to create an experience, and the experience can be created not as a template for all films in a similar manner. It is not possible. But each film demands a different template of showing how it is, because it can be an emotional film, it can be an action film, it can be any film. And also, mainly for editors, I think what they need to say, if you have a flow of lot of visuals coming, you, you need a small breather in between to enjoy the rest of it, because it's very scientifically proven that if you're watching a screen and you're watching 100 visuals in a minute, you would probably take in all the visuals and you'll understand most of it and stuff like that, but you really get worked up in the head because you've seen so much, and immediately again you continue with another 100 visuals of something is not going to help because it's only going to tax your head and get a headache.
Yes.
So you need, even if you see the greatest action films all over the world, I mean, if you take the bone or whatever,
Yeah.
which is like cut like really fast and lot of action and things like that. If you see, there will be those breathers,
Yes.
there will be those moments where they will allow you to sink in all the information you see and then move on to the next level. So this is a thing which you have to keep in mind for the filmmakers, and it's not about only about having a very short duration of continuous number of shots.
Yes. That was thank you for first of all, like that was a very elaborate and a very informative 45-minute session. Like I had it was kind of a very short master class in editing, to be very honest. So like thank you for that, and I will be now opening up to the audience questions. So guys, you can just raise your hand or you can type in the chat box. And apart from that, I am having three more questions from people who have already submitted during the registration for this event. So you guys can raise your hand. Yeah, Abhinav. Yeah, hi Abhinav. You can go ahead.
That when AI will ever be able to replace the video editors, these days, according to the surveys conducted, there are many videos which are uploaded on YouTube which just have intro, outro, and some basic editing which any AI can do normally these days. So, what are your thoughts about the AI editing videos?
See, I think AI is again going to be a great tool to use, and the guy who's able to use it would probably the guy who benefits. But finally, I don't know whether AI can totally replace ideas and new ideas. See, AI is working on ideas which are floating around and they're trying to get those ideas, trying to get the visual pattern, all this, it helps a filmmaker maybe, but what you would like to see is probably something original, so in that way I think still human mind will be far more original in that way. When now to it's very exciting to see suddenly somebody being created in AI and doing different things. But it's somebody being created for is not really after a point it will wear off, I think, and it would be anybody who can actually contribute and make something original will always be there. Will always be welcome much more than this, I think.
Thank you, Abhinav, for your question. Like apart from this, I have had like I have a few other questions. So the first one is from Gotham S. So his question is again about like software kind of thing, and that is like why do most editors prefer Avid over Premiere Pro and FCP, and like how do you approach a trailer cut? So this is his question.
See, the thing is that when I started on this non-linear editing, I started in 95. It came in 94, I think, something 93, 94. It came into India in 95. I had bought and things like that. Avid was the major player. There was another one which was very little presence was there. See, Avid advantage at that stage was it was made by a team of film editors. So all the film editing options we required were very clearly taken care of. And also we had to use the software and cut negative. So it has to be very foolproof in that, because we are cutting negative. Before we used to cut the negative, shoot a negative, edit on positive, and cut the negative according to the positive. But we had a positive reference, so just see the positive. It had some numbers, age numbers we used to call it, and cut it accordingly. And it used to be in a synchronizer, so it had a reference. But when Avid came in, there was no reference. It had to be by the information you fed into the Avid, and it would give you a list. By the list, you're cutting the shot. So when these things started happening, and we found that it was very safe to do it on Avid at that point. And then, of course, other softwares came in, and they also were able to do most of the things which were able to do on what you would call Avid. But the thing is that the base that Avid set up and the sturdiness with which it worked, it was very friendly for the people who are transitioning from film to uh,
Digital editing.
digital world. And while the newer ones were a little ahead, and they were trying to, and it worked very well for the video editing and things like that. But when it came back to film, they had initially some difficulties. So, and then it became a matter of now, like a lot of people I know are using uh, Premiere Pro because they find it convenient. So it just doesn't matter what software you use after a point if it serves your purpose. It's finally up to you to get the best edit into the film.
Yes. So like personally, like it's again just a curiosity. Like personally, what do you software do you use? Avid.
I am using Avid because I'm used to Avid, and now I don't want to again change the whole system because I have two, three Avids, and
Yeah, yeah.
so it's going to be difficult to again. And the people we have trained over the years and has been an Avid, so we're just continuing the thing.
Yeah, so like like films like RRR and everything, like all the
Yeah,
films are
all Avid,
all
all
are on Avid, all are on Avid. Like the thing is that normally
the
like Avid is
mainstream South Indian film industry mostly Avid.
oh wow, that's great to know actually, because nowadays most of people are also switching to DaVinci Resolve because it's an all-in-one
Yeah,
software.
that's because it gives you a capability for an independent filmmaker. I mean, if you're shooting ad or a short or even a
Yeah,
feature, and if it's independent and you don't need to go, you don't want to go to the. See, for us, we edit and then we send it for color correction to the DI,
yeah,
Digital Intermediate Department, and we don't do the color correction at all because it's a specialist job. They have the best equipment with it's several crores they bought and things, base lights and stuff like that. They correct on it, and the correct color correction can be done on every inch of the frame. In that capability they have. So we do. But if you are making an independent film and you want to do it yourself, you don't have the budget for it and all that. DaVinci, you edit on DaVinci, you color correct on DaVinci, and you get the final product out on DaVinci. I know so many people who are working like that.
yes. And the next question is like his next part of the question was that how is a trailer cut different from a film's cut? Like cutting for a trailer different from cutting for a film.
Yeah, it is. No, see, the thing is that there are two ways of looking at it. We've always come with the belief over the years that a trailer cut has to have intrigue. Don't show the whole works in the film, and keep the intrigue so that the audience come into the theater to see the film. That is what I believe even now. But what has happened over several years is the whole marketing team has taken over, and the releases have become huge, and the time that a film actually exists on the theater is very short.
Yeah.
So now the concept, whether it's Hollywood, it's Bollywood, everywhere, is to show whatever you have, because then is when the first 3 days you'll get your collection, and beyond that, if they still like the film, then it'll run for the next week. But your first 3 day money, what you're making, is probably more than 50-60% of your whole collection of the film.
Yeah.
It's become like that. It's become a marketing thing. So when they come, it's like they want to show off all their stuff. And personally, I don't still feel comfortable with that idea, but that's how it has become now. Trailer cutting is to show all your big points in the film to get the initial audience, because no film actually runs more than 2 weekends nowadays
Yes.
in good proportion.
Yeah.
So if you can get them to come there first, is become the point for the corporates.
So it's more like it's more like a marketing thing than an artistic
Yeah, now
editing
it's
kind of
become a
thing.
marketing thing. Then see, if you all see all the old trailers and all, there used to be a lot of intrigue and nothing about the film is actually
Yes.
revealed. You go to the theater, but for that, what beauty was there was that you would go on the first day. There won't be people in it. They'll see the film, like the film, and come back to by word of mouth. The film will increase on the third day, fourth day. But it used to have a run.
Yeah.
There used to be a space for it to run for 30 days or 40 days. Now, so many films are on online, so they don't have that luxury anymore. So they want to quickly get into this area of trying to show everything to excite the people and get them inside, and then get a big opening
Yes.
collection. So that's the difference which has happened over the years, and I mean, I guess that's the only way it could have go on.
Yes. So it's like the next kind of, it's like the evolution kind of the thing, like the next
Yes,
kind of that.
totally.
Yeah. And the last question, like from the apart from if you guys have any question, like is from Sumit. His question is that what film are you working on next, and any advice you have for, like, any small advice you have for upcoming editors? Like you gave us a pretty good masterclass, of course,
Well,
but like
advice on?
advice on for new editors who are joining the film industry, and what film are you working on currently?
See, right now I'm working on a film called Devara in Telugu.
Okay.
NTR Junior.
Yes, it was announced.
His
Like,
film.
yeah.
So that is there, April release. And then I'm working on a film called Indian with Kamal Hassan.
Yes.
That is also sometime next year I'll probably release. It takes long time. But I've done some Hindi films which are ready, but they are waiting for their time, because some of them are OTT and some of them are on theatre and things like that. One is called Sector 36, one is called Sarvagun Sampan, and things like that. And I've done a Malayalam film called Adu Jeevitham, which is they are waiting release. It's been in the making for 4-5 years, because it had to be shot in Morocco and things like that. Because see, what is my advice to editors? If you at all want to get into the space of editing, actually, it's a job where you sit and spend a lot of time in front of the monitors or wherever you're sitting and seeing the rushes and things like that. So I think Paramount, it should be, you should have patience to do that, I think. And it can't be for a person who wants to be out and out most of the time. It will not match with his way of working. So it's something which you see, and then you have to watch a lot of things which are repetitive. So you have to enjoy that thing and get the best out of it. It's not going to be an easy thing because it's not as ideal as it's being taught, or it's not because every film will have its own problems. It's not shot the perfect way, maybe. Hardly any film is shot the perfect way because everybody is trying to do something. So what they write and what they do, there will be a difference. They're trying to do. So sometimes it becomes a salvage operation. So you have to have patience. You have to have the mind that you don't give up, because it's so easy for nowadays guys to easily give up, saying that, oh, this is very bad, I don't want to get into it. That's not the attitude. It's probably how to improve a particular film which you owned up, which you have taken up. I mean, success and failure is something, but there is a work satisfaction which comes out when you complete the film. So it will be appreciated by people.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining, and like we actually kind of answered those questions. So thank you so much, for joining, and like the last 1 hour was like it was truly a masterclass, and I'm sure that all of us over here learned a lot, because there are many aspiring editors over here who really like as I told you in the beginning also, like the day since this session was announced, like most of them are like we want to learn from the best, we want to learn from the best, and thank you for joining, and I hope that you also had a good time with
Yes.
us.
All
Thank,
the best for all of you guys. Hope to see a lot of editors.
thank you so much, thank you so much, sir.